Can you tell us more about the Chayel, the fourth hybrid race, where they are and what their part in the hybridization agenda is?
It is from the Chayel that the precursors come. The precursors are those that are born off planet in that hybrid civilization that may now and then walk among you to see if you can tell that they walk among you, to see if you can feel the vibration of otherness that comes from them, to see how used to their vibration you may already be or not, to help gauge when it is appropriate for open contact to begin. That is the job, the duty of the Chayel.
And the Yael will be the first hybrid race to make open contact with us, as far as I understand.
Most likely, yes.
But not the first race to have open contact with us.
No.
Can you tell us who the first races will be to have open contact with us?
Well, you've already had some individual open contact with the idea of the Pleiadians, the idea of many indigenous tribes on your planet, particularly the Maya, is representative of an ongoing contact that has been going on for hundreds, if not thousands of years. It's just that most of you don't know these things are happening yet. So the idea is there will be some contact from what appear to be indigenous people who are in fact extraterrestrials. There will continue to expand the idea of the contact of the Pleiadians. There will be the expansion eventually of the hybrid children that will live among you. Again, the Shalanaya, in that sense, that will be presented to you by the Yael, and a few others that we're not really supposed to mention at this time.
Okay. And one person asked about, they had heard that there were high-level meetings held on Jupiter between several of Earth's leaders and CEOs, as well as ET leaders, for some kind of peace and protection agreement. Is that true? And can you tell us anything about the participants?
Well, first of all, nothing can be held on Jupiter. The gravity would crush you. And it's also a gas giant planet. There's no solid surface until you go so deep within the core of the planet that, again, the gravity would crush you. Now, there have been extraterrestrial bases on some of Jupiter's moons. There have been some sporadic communications that have been received by humanity on Earth from those that have established bases on the moons of Jupiter, and some of that did involve the idea of exploring open engagement. But that's as far as it's gotten. It has been paraphrased into this concept, a little bit blown out of proportion, a little bit exaggerated, as meetings on Jupiter. That's an extremely oversimplified understanding. It's a symbolic representation of some of the communications that have sporadically occurred between extraterrestrials on bases on Jupiter's moons with some humans who are attempting to find ways to open up the idea of open contact for your people.
Now, when you say meetings or communications between those on the moon and here, does that mean that the humans were transported to the moon or something? Or does it mean that?
I mean literal communications by some artificial means, either radio waves or something else that is beyond that, that your people, a few of them, have been allowed to receive through devices they were given some time ago.
So this, you've mentioned that there were some extraterrestrial contact with Eisenhower.
Yes.
I believe. Is there anything more you can tell us about that so we can understand that in the context of this discussion?
Well, a little bit different. It took place obviously at a different time, under different conditions, with different beings such as the Greys and the hybrids that existed at the time, and a few other races. But the idea is, again, you were given the offer of open contact at that time, and your established government decided that it wouldn't necessarily be to the benefit of society at that time. However, a plan was created for the eventual release of that information and a plan for open contact. But to some degree, to go back to the idea of your conspiracy theories, That plan was usurped by some who allowed themselves to grab power and who sequestered the information for the interests of maintaining the power for themselves, and therefore the plan was not eventually followed.
So did he physically see? I mean, was this like a physical meeting where he was standing in the room with Greys?
Well, standing on the tarmac. It took place at a base.
But the frequency levels were matching close enough that this could happen without psychotic shock?
For the beings at the time that were involved, close enough. And distance was still kept.
So is that kind of contact available to other humans now that we've raised our vibration? And
to some degree, yes. To some degree, yes. But again, remember, this was another time and another place with a different energy, a different frequency going on, and distance was still kept so that the energetic fields of the bodies wouldn't interact directly to the degree that would cause a problem.
Because if the Greys don't exist anymore...
Well, they are on their way out, evolutionarily speaking. But the Greys are a different issue. Because the Greys used to be human.
So was it the Greys that had contact?
There was some Greys and some early hybrids, but they were designed specifically for the purpose of those interactions. So they are not the hybrids you might meet today.
Okay.
And yet still precautions were taken.
We recently heard about Essassani activity in the Middle East like several thousand years ago.
About 1,000 or so, yes.
It had to do with the Sasani Empire of that time.
Yes.
Did they have interaction with humans on Earth? And
not directly, no. But they were seen from time to time, and they were considered, again, the idea of gods, which is why certain people were named after them, and why that name was given to the empire that was created by the descendants of the ones who were given the name of the god, that they thought was the god's name, but was simply the name of our society.
So do the Essassani now have interactions with humans other than this interaction through Darryl and you?
Only remotely, in the same way that you're experiencing it now.
Okay. So is it possible for other humans to channel other Essassani beings other than yourself, since the only person that you come through is Darryl?
It is possible for others to connect to the Sasani vibration and bring through information in a similar fashion to what you're seeing here, but they will not bring my personal identity through.
Okay, and what's the difference between ETs and angels?
Angels, in a sense, euphemistically speaking, are the first reflection of all that is. ETs are simply beings that come from other planets. Angels are non-physical beings, higher dimensional beings, the first reflection of God, so to speak. The first shift in frequency from the all that is, as a reflection of all that is. Do you understand?
Yes. Will the ETs, when we have open contact, will they share technology with us that helps us clean up our oceans, fix our planet basically from the destruction that we're experiencing?
To some degree, yes, but the point is that you must begin to do that yourselves to show that you are ready for such things. We're not here to save you. We're here to help you. So you must begin those processes on your own for us to know that you're committed to those processes, and then we can help you. We can upgrade what you're doing. But we're not going to do it for you.
Can you tell us a little more about how the Greys destroyed their planet, and is it essentially the same thing that we're seeing now on Earth?
You are seeing the beginnings on your planet of what they did to theirs, but theirs went much farther into destruction. Many ecological systems completely collapsed. The pollution and the technology could not correct it. Many different things went awry, as you may say. They lost the ability to reproduce. Your reproductive rates are already going down right now. So you're beginning that particular idea, but there's still time for you to not necessarily go as far as they had to go with it.
And like, what ecosystems would you say are at most danger or would be first to collapse on the planet based on our trajectory at this present time?
Between the jungles and the oceans, it's 50-50.
And the jungles are part of our breathing, basically, right?
Yes.
The oxygenation of the planet.
Yes. Now, you're already seeing massive changes in your climate, which in a sense is a natural cycle, but humanity with their technology has exacerbated it and accelerated it. But the idea now, as you have actually recently reported on some of your news channels, is not only now have some of the fires on your planet been caused by the weather, but the fires are now changing the weather. So that's also part of the acceleration of your climate change that wasn't necessarily foreseen.
And the extensive pollution in the ocean.
Yes.
And the idea that the conveyor would stop.
Yes.
Essentially. Is that the most imminent?
That's one. The other is the release of too much methane from the ocean floor.
Which all of these things affect the quality of our atmosphere.
They do, and they cause extinction level events.
Wow. So there will be an Earth that moves towards an extinction level event.
Oh, there will always be a version of Earth, and maybe even several versions of Earth that move in any direction you can imagine. It's up to you to navigate yourselves in the direction of the ones that you prefer. Again, that's why we give you the formula. Perhaps it needs to be underscored how powerful the formula is as an energetic device to help you navigate in the direction you say you prefer. You have to really understand it as if we have just given you an atomic bomb for positive energy.
So as people evolve, like sometimes people get concerned, well, who's going to do all the menial jobs? Because who's that going to be excited to, you know? And
just because you can't imagine how somebody might be excited to do something doesn't mean there won't be people who are excited to do it, number one. And number two, if you actually develop your technologies in a proper way, many of those jobs won't be necessary. They can be handled by other beings that are not necessarily human beings and not necessarily even biological.
Right. So that does seem to be with the automation and everything and the development of artificial intelligence.
Yes.
It becomes more and more clear that many of the jobs that humans find distasteful will actually be able to be taken over by
some. But again, some may find a renewed excitement to be involved in some of those things, such as people who love gardening. So the idea also is to understand, again, I'll reinforce this again, when you change the way you go about doing things socially, politically, technologically, so on and so forth, you will find that many of the jobs that are now required are unnecessary at all. Because you'll be doing things in a very different way.
And a tetrahedral UFO hovered over both the Pentagon and the Kremlin.
Yes.
What was the reason or message for this? And can you tell us who was on board?
The basic reason is to show the interconnectivity of energy that exists between those two particular nations. Whether it's expressed positively or negatively, it is a sign that there's a strong energetic link between those two nations in a variety of ways.